In the dim glow of crystal chandeliers, where the air hummed with the clink of fine silverware and the murmur of deals being sealed over foie gras, Elena Vargas stepped into La Belle Époque like a whisper in a storm. She was a woman of quiet edges, faded jeans hugging her sturdy frame, a simple cotton blouse the color of morning fog, and scuffed boots that spoke of long walks through city streets rather than red carpets. Her dark hair, streaked with silver, was pulled into a loose ponytail, and in her hands, she clutched a worn leather satchel, its strap frayed from years of faithful service. At 62, Elena looked every bit the unassuming immigrant who'd spent decades scrubbing floors and folding linens, not the architect of empires. But as she crossed the threshold of the Michelin-starred restaurant, her heart pounded not with nerves, but with a fierce, unspoken resolve. This place, with its vaulted ceilings and walls lined in gilded mirrors, had been her sanctuary once. A battlefield of broken dreams and quiet triumphs. And tonight, it would become hers again. Victor Hale, the elite manager of La Belle Époque, spotted her the moment she entered. Perched at his podium like a hawk on a wire, he adjusted his silk tie, his sharp blue eyes narrowing behind rimless glasses. Victor was the epitome of polished ambition, tall, impeccably tailored in a bespoke suit that cost more than most people's monthly rent, with a resume boasting stints at Paris bistros and New York steakhouses. He prided himself on curating an atmosphere of exclusivity, where the air itself seemed to demand a six-figure salary just to breathe it. Elena's entrance disrupted that illusion like a crack in fine china. "Table for one," he drawled, his voice laced with the kind of condescension that masqueraded as courtesy. She nodded, her warm brown eyes meeting his without flinching. "Yes, please. Somewhere quiet, if you don't mind." He scanned her from head to toe, his lips curling into a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Quiet? Madam, every table here is a symphony. But I'm afraid we're fully booked this evening. Perhaps try the bistro down the block, they specialize in casual attire." The hostess, a young woman with a tight bun and apologetic eyes, shifted uncomfortably, but Victor waved her off. A few patrons glanced up from their escargot, sensing the undercurrent of drama. Elena stood still, her posture straight as the oak trees she'd planted in her tiny backyard garden back in Queens. "I understand," she said softly, her accent a gentle lilt from her childhood in a small Mexican village. "But I made a reservation under Vargas. Elena Vargas." Victor's laugh was a sharp bark, echoing off the marble floors. "Vargas? Oh, darling, we've had our share of walk-ins tonight. If you could just step aside." He gestured vaguely toward the door, as if she were a misplaced coat rack. The room seemed to hold its breath. Elena didn't move. Instead, she reached into her satchel and pulled out a single, crisp envelope, sealed with the restaurant's embossed crest. "Perhaps this will refresh your memory," she said, her voice steady as a heartbeat. Victor snatched it with feigned impatience, tearing it open. His face drained of color as he read the contents, a deed of ownership, notarized and dated just that morning. La Belle Époque was no longer the property of the absentee conglomerate that had hired him, it had been quietly acquired by a private buyer. Elena Vargas. The realization hit him like a cold wave crashing over a pier. He stammered, his manicured hands trembling as he clutched the paper. This must be a mistake. You're the new owner." Elena smiled then, not with triumph, but with the quiet warmth of someone who'd weathered storms far fiercer than a snide remark. "Yes, Victor. I am. And I'd still like that quiet table. For two, actually. My son is joining me shortly." The patrons erupted into whispers, phones subtly angling for photos, but Elena ignored them all. She followed a mortified Victor to a corner booth, the one with the best view of the Seine-inspired mural, a nod to the restaurant's French roots that she'd helped paint during her nights off, 20 years ago. As she settled into the velvet seat, memories flooded Elena like the aroma of simmering coke au vin wafting from the kitchen. She'd come to New York at 18, a wide-eyed girl with nothing but a suitcase stitched by her abuela's hands and a dream stitched into her own. La Belle Époque had been her first job, waitressing tables while dodging the leers of wealthy diners who saw her as scenery, not a soul. Back then, the owner, old Monsieur Laurent, had been kind, a rare gem in a world that polished its edges on the backs of the unseen. He'd taught her the rhythm of service, not just plating dishes, but feeding hearts. Food is memory, Elena, he'd say, his voice gravelly from Gauloise. Serve it with love, and it lingers forever. She'd risen through the ranks, from busgirl to sous-chef, saving every penny in a coffee can under her bed. When Monsieur Laurent passed, the restaurant was sold to faceless investors who turned it into a profit machine, prices soared, staff turnover spiked, and the soul Elena had helped nurture began to wither. But life had a way of circling back. Her son, Miguel, now a tech whiz in Silicon Valley, had struck gold with an app that connected immigrant families with legal aid. The windfall wasn't just money, it was vindication. "Mama," he'd said over a crackling video call, "you built empires with your hands. Let me help you reclaim one." And so she had, buying back La Belle Époque not for revenge, but for redemption. To restore the warmth that had once made it a haven for the lonely, the ambitious, the broken-hearted. As Miguel arrived, tall and lanky in a hoodie that screamed startup casual, Elena's eyes lit up. He slid into the booth, kissing her cheek. "You okay, Mama?" "I saw the drama from the door." She waved it off. "Just an old friend testing the waters. Now, let's eat. I hear the duck confit is divine." Victor hovered at the edge of their table, his usual swagger replaced by a fidgety unease. He'd comped their meal, of course, lobster bisque, truffle risotto, creme brulee that cracked like fragile egos under a spoon. But as he refilled Elena's water glass for the third time, his apologies tumbled out in a rush. "Mrs. Vargas, I had no idea. My behavior was inexcusable. If there's anything at all." Elena looked up, her gaze softening like butter in a warm pan. "Victor, sit with us for a moment. Please." He hesitated, then perched on the edge of the chair, his suit suddenly feeling too tight. Miguel raised an eyebrow but said nothing, trusting his mother's instincts. "Tell me," Elena began, her voice a gentle current pulling him in, "why did you turn me away?" Victor flushed, staring at his hands. I assumed. You looked ordinary. This place, it's about image. The right crowd brings the reservations, the reviews, the prestige." She nodded, as if she'd heard it 1,000 times before. "And what if ordinary is the very thing that makes a place extraordinary? I came here tonight in these clothes because they're the ones that carried me through my days here. These boots walked the floors when I was invisible, these jeans held the stains of sauces I invented in the back alley on breaks. Ordinary isn't a flaw, Victor, it's the foundation." He shifted, uncomfortable under her unflinching kindness. "But the investors, they demanded excellence. Exclusivity. I was just doing my job." Elena leaned forward, her eyes tracing the lines of exhaustion on his face, the late nights, the pressure, the loneliness of climbing ladders that led nowhere warm. "Excellence isn't in the price tag or the pedigree. It's in the heart you serve with. Do you remember Rosa? The dishwasher who worked doubles to send her kids to school." Victor blinked, the name stirring a vague recollection. "She left last year. Burned out." Elena's expression grew wistful. "She didn't burn out, Victor. She broke. Because no one saw her, the woman who hummed rancheras while scrubbing pots, who slipped extra bread to the homeless man outside. I see her still, in every shine on these plates." As the evening unfolded, the restaurant's rhythm shifted. Waitstaff, sensing the undercurrent, began to linger at Elena's table, sharing stories of slights endured and dreams deferred. A young server, Jamal, recounted how Victor had once docked his pay for a spilled wine glass, blind to the fact that Jamal's father had just passed. Another, Sophia, whispered of the holiday shifts Victor mandated, ignoring her plea to be home for her daughter's recital. With each tale, Victor's defenses crumbled, brick by judgmental brick. He wasn't a monster, Elena knew, just a man armored in ambition, forged in a world that rewarded the ruthless. And in that booth, under the soft glow of candlelight, she saw the boy he'd been, orphaned young, clawing his way up from a Bronx foster home, equating worth with wealth because it was the only metric he'd ever trusted.